Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Daniel. We've begun to look at Daniel chapter 5, the last days of Babylon. Now, Belshazzar is the king in the city of Babylon. The Persian army has surrounded the city. They are besieging it. The Babylonian army under Nabonidus, Belshazzar's father, has been defeated, and now the Persians are besieging Babylon itself. But Belshazzar feels secure. Babylon has strong walls, high walls. It is a well-fortified city. Belshazzar believes he can withstand the Persians for many years. Maybe the city will never be conquered, so he thinks. And in his arrogance, he throws a great banquet to celebrate his greatness. Let's begin reading at verse 3. So they brought in, this is at the banquet, they brought in the gold goblets that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem. And the king and his nobles, his wives, his concubines drank from them. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Now the goblets they brought in, these are the articles that were taken many, many years before by Nebuchadnezzar when he sacked Jerusalem and carried the people into exile. That had occurred around 587 BC. The current year is 539. So a little over half a century before, these articles from the temple in Jerusalem had been brought to Babylon. Now Belshazzar, in his arrogance, calls them out, says, "Bring them to us, and we will use them to drink from and to toast our gods, our idols." Now you remember Nebuchadnezzar, when he was king, had finally been converted and realized that God is God. But that knowledge had not passed on to Belshazzar, or at least he has rejected it. And now he is using the articles from the true God, from the temple, to worship and praise the idols of Babylon. What arrogance, what pride. But pride goes before a fall, and things are about to change. So while they're in the midst of their drunken feast, praising their idols and despising the true God, suddenly something happens. Verse 5. Suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so afraid that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking together. Suddenly there's a supernatural intervention. They see the fingers of the human hand writing on the wall. God has shown up, and Belshazzar is scared to death. Cannot keep his knees from knocking together. He never expected God to show up, and now he has in this rather dramatic way. So the left, after the hand is gone, the vision vanishes. They see the writing on the wall. There are 4 words written. We'll look at those tomorrow. But Belshazzar has no idea what it means, what they signify. So in verse 7, he summons the enchanters, the astrologers, the diviners, and asks them to tell him the meaning of the writing. Whoever reads it, tells me what it means, will be clothed in purple, have a gold chain placed around his neck. He'll be made the 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom. So he offers lavish rewards for the one who can tell him what the words mean. What is this message from God? You remember I told you yesterday that the idea of making someone 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom, that's because Nabonidus, who is Belshazzar's father, is technically the king over the entire empire, though he has already been defeated in the field. Belshazzar is 2nd, who rules over the city of Babylon. And so he promises to make someone else 3rd if they can tell what the writing means. Just under himself. And he, of course, is under the authority of Nabonidus. But none of the king's wise men have any idea what it means. Now the Queen Mother is probably Nebuchadnezzar's widow. The Queen Mother hears the voices of the king and his nobles. She comes into the banquet hall and says, "May the king live forever. Do not be alarmed. Do not look pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In the time of your father," referring to Nebuchadnezzar there. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was not Belshazzar's father Nabonidus was. But in the line of kings, it would be common to say that the former king was my father. He was not his biological father, but he was the former king, and so he claims that as his right to sit on the throne. But anyway, he says, in the time of your father, this man was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. Your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of all the magicians. He did this because Daniel had a keen mind, knowledge, understanding, and the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel. He will tell you what the writing means. So the queen mother, as I said, probably the widow of Nebuchadnezzar, reminds Belshazzar of what had happened years before, which obviously he had forgotten or neglected to remember. Reminds him of Daniel, whom Nebuchadnezzar had found to be a man of God and could interpret dreams, so he can tell you what the writing means. Belshazzar is desperate now, so he follows the advice of the queen mother and calls in Daniel. And he says to Daniel, I've heard that the spirit of the gods is in you. You have insight, intelligence, wisdom. Read the writing, tell me what it means, and I will give you the rewards. So Daniel is brought in to interpret the writing. Just as many years before, he had been brought in to interpret the dream of Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel answers in verse 17, you can keep the gifts for yourself. Not interested in your money, your promotions, your praise. Keep the gifts for yourself. Give the rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will tell you what the writing means and what God is telling you through this writing. So Daniel says, I don't need your gifts, I don't want them, but I will interpret for you what the writing on the wall means. So now we've got this dramatic scene as Daniel is about to unfold for Belshazzar what the writing on the wall means. We'll look at that tomorrow. So I hope you'll join us next for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Daniel.